Welcome everyone to the November 18th Hartland Selectboard meeting. It is 5:30. I'll check. Okay, thank you. The first order of business are the minutes from the November 4th. I'm going to entertain a motion to accept the regular minutes as well as the executive session minutes.
I'll make the motion.
Thank you, Jim. Is there a second?
I'll second it.
Thank you, Tom. Any discussion?
Oh, on the second page at the top, it's got BJ Batten instead of Batson.
I didn't have it correct in other places. John, I wasn't familiar with what is HS 122 when you're talking about the fiscal year 24 budget.
Martin brought up HS 122.
Oh, that's the homestead.
Yes, the homestead. I guess the homestead regulation,
Okay.
yeah.
Okay, we might want to put that in there in parens. Any other questions? All in favor, say aye. Aye. Thank you. Thank you, Jim, for doing the executive session. Second order of business is the accounts payable or the warrants through today. Again, I need a motion to have a discussion.
I'll make a motion to accept the warrants and payables through today.
Thank you, Jim. A second.
Oh, second.
Thank you, Clyde. Any discussion?
Just wonder, is it code 6 snow shovels or 6 snow shovels for $37.98?
So,
I always thought that was a bargain.
not 6 snow shovels for $37, no. But snow shovels. Like the code, the account number.
Just the code.
Yeah.
Okay.
I just was curious about some of the repairs.
Yeah, okay, you're
Yes.
on the same page as I am.
Yes.
The Ford 550, the Freightliner, yeah.
Which one specifically?
I think there were 3 that were like 5,000 plus, right?
Yes, there were. So it's the 550. That's the red truck that we've had continual problems with over in the past 18 months or so. Continue to have trouble with. Just keeping it on the road, basically, at this point. And then the number 2, one of the dump trucks. We were just kind of chasing error codes at this point. It wasn't an incident or anything. This is just, catching up on, some deferred maintenance for a long time and, wear and tear.
There was a GMC truck body, a body truck, I should say.
The GMC truck body is the body that was put on the runabout truck, basically. We took the bed of it off and put on a flatbed.
Is the number 2 Freightliner, is that one that we're hoping to replace?
That will be replaced next year if the budget goes through.
Okay.
Number 5 is the other temporary, that's the one that is in the process of getting replaced this year. We have a truck get built. That might take a year. But with the truck is here, it's just needs to be built.
The 550 is the
550 will be replaced. That's the other truck that will be replaced next year. So essentially, there should be 2 trucks that's getting replaced next year. They're both due years wise. 550 is overdue, but will be replaced next summer.
Yeah.
Or ordered next summer.
And later on this evening, I'll practically have an update on the reserve funds for the rest of the highway.
Yeah, so this will come up later in more detail.
Both the payment to the state police, which I was happy to see, but also 10 grand for Windsor.
County Sheriff?
Yeah,
That's on our,
okay.
that's our monthly statement for them.
Okay. And I was caught off guard and North Hartland this week by a Windsor County Sheriff. I kind of had to use a brake pedal. Okay, other questions, points for the veterans, accounts payable? Set?
All set.
Okay, motion to accept them?
We have a motion.
Yes, motion. All in favor, say aye. Okay, motion passes. Thank you. Are there any public comments other than Bird Hill Road and the North Hartland School? Anything online?
Nope.
Okay, we're on a roll. We have no old business tonight, so let's go right on to Bird Hill Road. Just for the public record, we had a site walk this afternoon at 3:30 with the select board members and many community members. We're back here this evening to talk a little bit about what we saw and some next steps. John, can I turn to you for an outline of what we're looking?
Sure. So there's two paths that the board can take based on the information that we have. The board can either choose to take the road or put it back to the take action or not action, or put it back to the residents to get a petition with 5% of the registered voters in town and bring that to the board. There is some required maintenance that would be needed before it, depending on which path you choose. BJ, do you want to talk about the maintenance that we had talked about on the site visit?
Yeah, we can. The road would have to have 2 to 4 inches of hard patch put down on the whole road. The culverts look good. One driveway might need to have a driveway culvert installed at low point for the water to get through. Also, the ditch line to have 7-inch lines for the other than that, those get done, and then also have the bridge weight graded by the state or bridge expert. What the weight is.
What is the weight of our grader?
Grader is 37,300 pounds.
And do we know offhand the weight of the various safety equipment, fire trucks?
The forestry truck is the lightest one, and that number is escaping the top of my head, but it's
The heaviest one is about 41,000 pounds, fully loaded water.
a tanker.
Okay. So how are we going to go about this now?
Well, I mean, I think there's also the fact the state requirements for a wooden deck bridge is that it's limited at 16,000 pounds. So, I mean, we have to, check with the lawyers, but I believe if we took it over, we'd be required to post it at 16,000 pounds.
Mm-hmm. Okay. So do you want BJ to do some research, or are we going to ask the property owners?
So I think it would, at this point, I would put it to the property owners to start. I would encourage them to start. I would encourage you all to start with an engineering analysis of the bridge to get a proper weight rating, but knowing that state statute caps it at 16,000 pounds and the limitations of that. So if there's discussion on that from folks in the room.
Sorry, could you clarify what you mean by, so 41,000 pounds is the heaviest truck that would have to go over the bridge?
It's the heaviest fire truck that we have.
Fully loaded? So, I'm sorry, what is the 16,000 pounds referred to?
For wooden deck bridge,
Yeah,
Vermont caps the weight limit at 16,000 pounds.
oh, I see,
Right.
for that sort of bridge,
Right.
sort of bridge we have.
Yeah, so for example, I was driving down through Chester on Sunday, and there's several wooden deck bridges along that road on 103.
Yep.
And the ones that are private are not posted, the ones that are town owned are posted at 16,000 pounds.
Okay.
Your question in the back.
Yes,
If the engineer rates it for more than 16,000 pounds, are we still limited to 16,000 pounds?
It doesn't change the Vermont law.
So why get it rated? How would that help us?
I don't think, well, I don't want to speak for the board.
yeah,
I'm not sure it would help in this situation, but it might be good to know, since it's a private road. It would be good information for the fire department to know what they can get over that bridge.
yeah, and that's exactly what I was going to add, Jim, is that you would at least be able to understand what the safety of what vehicles, town fire department and safety vehicles could safely cross over that.
But it won't change our issue then if we were to be rated for 60,000 pounds, you wouldn't recognize that, you would still say no more than 16?
If it's a town-owned road, would be limited to Vermont law. Unless we get a legal opinion that refuted that.
I couldn't hear you, unless what?
Unless the lawyer said that there was a way around that, right? So, I mean, the Vermont statute is fairly clear.
Okay. Because everything weighs 16,000 pounds, the oil trucks,
Right, they weigh more, yeah. Your average ambulance weighs 16,000 pounds.
So even if we did get this engineer certified that the bridge could hold like 45,000 pounds, it wouldn't matter.
Not if it's a town-owned bridge.
Not for a town.
Right. For a private road, then have different options potentially.
Does that have to be clarified?
I think we need clarification if we're going to move forward. Right?
That's an easy, we can ask our attorney that question. I think tonight, though, it depends on which path the board chooses to take.
So I understand that the residents on Bird Hill, what you're trying to do, but from my perspective, this is also somewhat precedent setting because I forget, somebody said there's over 20 other roads in town that have multiple homes on it and so on. And so I think
70 private roads.
70 private roads. So to me, we need to be able to do our due diligence and come up with a policy as to how we're going to respond to things like this and not do it on an ad hoc basis, because I think it's unfair to others that might come forward. Maybe it's a different board or whatever, and they say no, some say yes. And so if you could, and I know you don't want to hear this, it sounds very bureaucratic, but if you give us some time, hey, let's figure out how many roads there are. Let's figure out the bridge issue. The other thing is, towns with would be considered a class 3 road. You get some revenue for having X number of miles of class 3 roads per mile. I don't know how much that is, but I don't want to just jump into it. So I would suggest is that we table this discussion, do our due diligence, and then address this at a later time. I'm sorry, I know you probably don't want to hear that, but because this could end up being
I don't think we're setting a precedent because I think that's already set by other people, that the town has taken over their roads. Tinkham Hill, since I've lived here for 44 years, Tinkham Hill's been taken over, Richmond Meadow's been taken over. There's other roads that have been taken over, so we aren't setting precedent.
it's really not, there are many more roads that have not been taken over than have been taken over. I did a little survey just where I live, and there are a lot of homes on a lot of private roads that the town has nothing to do with. And so and we did track down the school children sort of question, and that was a dead end. We could not get any statute that held up on that one. So So I do think we need to, we'll explore the bridge to the best we can, and then whatever due diligence we can do other than.
I also think we need to do an analysis of, we come up with a standard, and then we're gonna start to accept a lot of these private roads, what's that gonna cost?
Right, yeah, and
it may not cost them, I don't know.
right, and there's two costs. There's one, the cost to bring it up to the town and state standards. And then there's the ongoing cost of maintenance every year, and we have to somehow put a figure on that. Do we need another person on the plow routes if we add all of them, or?
Can we do it some class 4 road that we do?
We don't maintain class 4 roads, right? They're unmaintained.
So will the select board of the town be maintaining it so that we know whether a fire truck or force of the fire department knows whether they can come across the bridge, or the ambulances, or blah, blah, blah?
I think speak to the board, I think you would have to do that as residents. You'd have to get an engineer to look at it.
Is that something on the board, because now you don't know whether fire trucks and ambulances can come across our bridge, and we don't know that?
And it's really not, again, stop me. You need to, I don't think it's a board issue. I think it's a town manager and fire chief issue.
Yeah.
So, because technically John's oversees the fire department, which is a volunteer force.
So wouldn't you need to get it weight rated to know the answer to that?
I think because it's a private bridge, you'd all need to get an engineer to look at it.
So, do you mind? You and I talked about this a few weeks back, and we discussed the fact that it was going to take probably several meetings to achieve any progress with these things, because there's so many people involved and there's so many different groups involved. So, I'm duly impressed with the organization that has been put forth here on this, and the effort that is going into it. But it doesn't happen. These kind of things don't just happen on one meeting. And I know it's very difficult when you work as hard as you've been working to try to organize these things, but just try to be patient with us. And I know that John will look into it on that. And
so what I can do is contact our attorney to find out an answer to the question of whether it's the weight rating is higher than the 16,000 pounds. How does that, what's the answer to that question?
Well, my immediate question is, now is fire trucks, is somebody up, I'm fine at the bottom of the hill, but is somebody up on top of the hill now? I mean, what is the fire department saying? Are they gonna come across our bridge? Do we have fire protection? Do we have ambulance protection? That's the thing now that we don't know.
So I think most people would say having a blanket weight rate on a bridge because it's wood doesn't make any sense. All bridges are not created equal. Some have wooden beams underneath them, some have steel beams underneath them. And so, but this is just what VTrans does. I personally don't think you should be spending any more time doing some of it. Now it's kind of up to us to do our due diligence and to look into these things. And one of the things we need to do is talk to the fire department. We certainly would talk to the fire department as of right now, can the fire trucks go up in an over your thing, just so you know, and you feel safe that, somebody on the top of the hill, you're going to get fire protection. I believe you will.
I know 8 years ago when we replaced the bridge, Matt Dow talked to John Sanders, and told him that the bridge is safe for them now. It wasn't prior to.
I think we need an engineering opinion as opposed to a contractor's opinion.
Right.
You also have to account for time, right?
We're, as Trace says, we're not going to ignore you. We just need to do our due diligence, and let's just see what we can come up with, but, you know,
I'm still not sure who's paying for any.
So, at this point, I can contact the attorney to get an answer to that question. I can coordinate with the fire chief to see what trucks he would at this point send over the bridge without a weight rating. If you wanted to get it weight rated, that would be on the residents of Bird Hill to hire an engineer.
So if we were to hire an engineer and have it weight rated, does that mean you're gonna accept that? Or does it have to be somebody that the town?
I think it's up to the fire department.
John.
Yeah, so it's up to the fire department. I think we're like, let me talk to the attorney first to see how that plays out, and we can go from there. Right? So it's two things. Let me talk to the attorney to see which weight rating would apply, and also at the same time have the conversation with the fire chief to see what trucks he is comfortable sending over the bridge without it being weight rated right now.
So yeah, because my question is, would you want your own engineer to weight rate it, or would you accept, if we found somebody, engineer to weight rate it?
I would accept, I think the town would accept a stamped report from a licensed engineer in the state of Vermont.
Does it need to be trans certified or?
No, I think if there's a PE or a license to work in the state of Vermont, we would accept their weight rating.
And once that was accepted, if it was accepted, then what would be the next step for them?
So depending on what the attorney says,
Right.
it could still potentially be capped at 16,000 pounds as is outlined in state statute. If the attorney says there's a path forward, then it's a discussion for the board, because then I think it's we have this information, which path would you like to choose?
And at that point, BJ's observations would come into play at this point, minor compared to the bridge.
The road, yeah.
Piece, that part.
Right.
Okay, so what I'm hearing, just to summarize, to make sure we're in agreement, John will contact one of the town attorneys to clarify the state statute regarding this wooden bridge. Bird Hill residents will go about obtaining a weight study by a licensed engineer, Vermont engineer, and then we'll reconvene and sort of see where that information leads us at that point.
But again, does that matter?
So I would encourage you to hit pause on contacting the engineers until you hear from me regarding what the attorney says.
Okay.
Right?
And can it be clarified to the attorney that there are 4 I-beams under this, that it's not just wood?
Right. Yeah, I mean, I will give them the information. Right.
I keep hearing the wooden bridge, it's got a wooden top.
It's got a wooden top.
Right. Yeah, I will send him the information that we have available to us, yeah.
Okay.
Yes.
Thank you.
Any other questions?
I have a question.
Yes.
Are there other variables besides the bridge? Would that be worth a discussion at this
Well,
point?
I think the somewhat understated variable that Tom tried to point out is the fact that we have many roads in town that are private roads. So that I think we have to be very clear and careful about going forward with you, because as soon as that happens, that will potentially open the gateway for why are we not doing it for the other 60-something roads in town?
So Bird Hill is the first private road that has been,
No, I was on the board when Eastern Road, folks came in, we did a site walk, and we laid out what needed to be done, and the residents chose to leave it a private road. So that was just done before your time. So in the last 2 to 3 years, we can even help on that one.
We do plow half of the other half where all the houses are built.
But plow, there's a section of it that was always a town road back into the 1700s. And then there was a real estate developer that developed another section, and that's the section that I'm talking about.
And I think there's like 5 or 6 houses right now built up there. And they chose not to put the road up to par, so we chose to keep it.
Other roads have really gone from private to public.
There hasn't been since I've been here.
But there has been that, which since I've been here, Kingdom Hill has, Meadow has.
I've been here for.
So I think
Yeah,
I think something that has to happen, and Tom, I think got at this earlier, is that the board should have a policy about what they're looking for when they accept new roads.
Yeah.
So just because we accepted Tinkham Hill at some point in the past, right, as opposed to making these like decisions on the fly based on the information for each road, let's have a set of guidelines that we can follow, a set of parameters that we need to check all of these boxes.
Right.
So that is something that the board and I can work on, you know, as time allows in the coming months. Just
Like
to,
an ordinance or something that says, no, we're not taking water, we have to.
right. So that is something that we need to have in place for when, because there are 70 other private roads in town.
Lindsay?
I just have one question, I'm sorry. First about the law, they started talking. During the last meeting, someone had said that, there was a rule or ordinance that a street has more than 5 houses. Was that correct?
No.
Oh, okay.
No.
So that was looked into and it's.
And Lizzie, as you know, John researched with both Hartland School principal as well as Christine Bourne at the supervisory union, that we have no knowledge of a rule that says that there's so many kids on the road that we need to provide.
Well, that was a separate one. I heard the child one, but then I also heard that number of houses.
Right.
Those are two separate things.
No. Yeah, some of the private roads have a house and others have up off Avon Hill, Pelham North is a development. You know, it's quite a large. I wouldn't venture to guess how many. And there's side roads off of the private road, and so it varies in town. I guess is what I'm saying. The number of houses that are there.
2 roads are alike. Seems like it makes total sense to create a set of variables. You know, when you guys get someone like us asking, like, okay, you know, the length of the road, the number of houses, you know, how well it's built, et cetera. I mean, obviously the bridge poses a difficulty or unusual challenge, but
Yeah.
it's not a non-starter.
Well stated. Thank you. Any other questions or?
I'm wondering if you would be open to, like, almost sounds like a subcommittee of sorts, that would you take any, like, just residents in town, who wanted to commit to working on these parameters, or is it strictly gonna be a select board, conversation? I'm not saying just us.
Yeah, when we start doing policy.
Right, I mean, I think
It's what this does is work on policy issues.
But we'd have public
there will
hearings.
be, there will be,
If we're gonna do an ordinance.
we would put something together, there will be public meetings on it, you know, specifically warned public meetings, like, we're going to talk about the private road adoption policy, whatever it might be called, right? For which, you know, at which point, folks are welcome to come and provide feedback.
And the very next agenda item is a town property that we're debating what to do with. And we formed a citizen and select board committee to do that work. So yes, we do. We'll be doing that. Okay, I wish we had an easy answer, especially with winter coming and just, you know, but I feel we have some next steps with that we just outlined, and ultimately we will, as a board, need to address this policy. And as John said, this is not something we'll do in executive session. This will be an open public discussion.
So you'll hear from me regarding what I hear from the attorney.
Thank you.
They're pretty quick, generally pretty quick on turnaround, so, probably by Thanksgiving you would hear from me, I would expect.
Message, Joe?
Yes. Yeah, unless he's been my point of contact, so if that remains the same.
Yeah,
Okay,
that's good. Thank you.
okay, yeah, thank you. All right,
Thank you.
Is there anyone online with questions at all?
there are no questions online.
Yes, get out.
You're welcome to stay.
Lots of fun. It gets more exciting the longer we go.
Bring your pillow.
Thank you.
And they're not that things that you should try to do. I don't know what the building like. That's a really difficult thing. It really is.
Members and families with the young kids of the last day.
That's good.
Okay, our next agenda item is the North Hartland School Committee's report. Kim is with us tonight. I do want to say a quick thank you to the members. It was a many-month process that was spent, and we have a report. So I would like to ask Kim to basically do a high-level step through and bring our attention to anything that you would like to. Please.
Well, this should be good because the charge came from you, the select board. So as a reminder, November 6, 2023, the select board approved a charge, and their charge was to develop a committee, North Hartland School Board or School Committee. And the purpose of North Hartland School Committee was to become familiar with the building by touring the facility and grounds, brainstorming building use, and create various scenarios and report back to you on what our findings were. So it's almost a year. Our final meeting was on October 7th. And I'm here now and I'm going to report. I'd like to first start off with, in recognition of our members to this committee, I would like to say their names. Denise Brown, and she's from North Hartland. Sherry Clark and Martin Dole from Hartland. Myself and my husband, Jeff Gibbs from North Hartland. Jody Himmelholt from Hartland. Kathy Maloney and Randy Somersault from North Hartland. We also had.
I think Sherry just wants to make it quick.
It was never official.
Well, I deemed you official. I think you
All those who don't volunteer, take one step back.
We also had resources, experts, if you will. We had access to John Broker, Campbell, and Phil, and Clyde, and John Leonard, who was able to make a few meetings. So I'm just going to take you on a high-level journey, and then we'll just have some questions at the end, if that's okay. So our first meeting kicked off on February 2024. So I led with this acknowledgement of a sense of community, which has always been an important aspect of living in Hartland. The drive to enhance the sense of community was the core of our committee work. And of course, the balance of the property's potential use and budget is a challenge that must ultimately be addressed. However, the committee charge was only to think about options. I'll leave the balance challenge in the hands of the residents and the select board. So we knew going into our first meeting, the town owns 1.5 acres on Mill Street. On the property are recreational facilities, as well as this old schoolhouse, which remained unused, but while the town still keeps it heated and maintained. Due to several broken windows and other mischievous actions, the select board asked the question, what is the town doing with this structure? There's no zoning, the building is not ADA accessible. Water source is through the North Hartland Co-op. The building, like I said, is currently maintained. Looking at the numbers over the past 4 years, which averaged about $7,000 per year. So brainstorming highlights include that we would explore options such as renting to a business, selling, renovations to allow community group. The sky was the limit. So over the next several months, the committee continued to meet under the unified theme of keeping the overall property as part of the town park. So with that theme, we started thinking about use of space for gatherings and other activities to foster connectivity amongst the residents. Similar to what the rec center does, be able to rent the venue for events, fitness classes, daycare, add a pavilion or two with grill options, which is super important. If you take a walk on that property, there's really no shade. So everything's out in the open. We even is this property even viable for future use of the property? The committee spent time touring inside and out. We noticed ourselves the electrical issues, curious about the health of the furnace and heating system, water heater, septic, it's not ADA accessible, lead paint, asbestos, the list went on and on. So by July 2024, we did ask for a formal inspection report, which was done by Dan Jones with the White River Valley home inspection, and I provided a link in your report. He highlighted 4 safety and critical issues. One was the electrical, because it's still using fuses. It's not inherently unsafe, but they are considered outdated in technology. The inspector noticed that it would be a better idea to do like the breaker panel with the proper main shutoffs. And then depending on the use of the building, upgrading to from the 100 amp to a higher amp. Smoke and CO detectors don't exist, or the CO doesn't exist, but the smoke detector was inspected in 2021. There were violations at that time. Don't know if they've been fixed, I don't think so. Plumbing, fuel storage, and distribution systems. The oil source is a buried tank, so the age and condition is really unknown. Fireplace vents, flues, and chimney. The chimney is really in poor condition above the roof with significant deteriorations of those blocks. Mr. Jones then provided categories that he would recommend outside of these critical ones, which it's the roof, exterior items, sliding doors, walkways, electrical heating, attic installation, and other such items. So the committee held its meeting on October 2nd with the goal to complete the charge for the select board. As mentioned earlier, the committee felt strongly that the property be kept as a source of the town and to consider other ways of, we were thinking about the critical areas that need to be replaced and repaired, the committee's cost estimate roughly. Now, remember who I mentioned who are on the committee and are experts. We were thinking, better than $200,000 just to get those items fixed. And of course, additional expenses for those other recommendations.
So that's a committee estimate, not a builder's estimate.
Correct. Oh, we had a couple of the committee members talk to contractors just over the phone kind of thing, but yes, in other words, yes. So, and also consider this, if we leave the building on the property, it still doesn't fix the possibility for vandalizing and other issues. So to that end, the committee's recommendations are as follows and in order of preference. First, we recommend further exploration and a feasibility study to influence the final decision to either keep or tear down the building. If the feasibility data and public input and approval by the select board leads to demolishing. The committee recommends installing a large covered pavilion, roughly the same size and footprint where the building is today, adding various shelters around the property, grilling options, picnic tables. The bonus is we already have electricity and water, but again, some additional shelter because it's really hot when you're out there playing in North Hartland Field. In addition, we thought about, keeping the ballpark refreshed, keep it trimmed and mowed for the summer months, especially perhaps adding a volleyball net. The other court surface to be updated and maintained to encourage use. And while the playground is a wonderful resource and it really is a nice spot, it has no shade. So perhaps some creative shading options should be explored. We also recommend a bathroom type facility, porta potty type of thing. And again, operate similar to the dam or rec center with a private event rental. So if the feasibility study and the public indicates to keep the building, our second recommendation is to seek funding to fully repair, replace, and update all the safety critical issues and other suggestions from the inspector. The outcome of this would provide additional building resources, so increase those other opportunities for maybe coffee gatherings, libraries, after school, preschool programs. Again, we would still recommend another shelter type to be put on the property. In both cases, keeping the building or not, we need to bring attention and awareness this property provides and the many, many possibilities. To that end, we recommend that a community group be formed. This group would take charge of organizing events such as winter sledding, town-wide yard sales, fall tournaments, neighborhood gatherings. The community's impression is that the community will need to drive awareness of this wonderful resource we have on Hill Street in North Hartland. Imagine the right people to advocate, organize, and consistently communicate in order to bring awareness and excitement to this property as a value add to the town of Hartland, the community, and beyond. And I'd like to publicly thank the select board for offering this committee review and to the committee members. I know if there's a few here. Yes, and that's you. So there we are.
Great.
Any questions?
So just trying to listen to what you're saying. It seems like people like the property.
Love it.
Right, but not necessarily in love with the building.
Right.
Right? So just hypothetically, because I didn't really hear this in the options. If we sectioned off the building, right, sold that little piece and then put the money into the park.
We did talk about subdivisions.
Yeah, solve a lot of it.
We talked about that. It got a little muddy when we started thinking about then the next person who sells it or sort of that, you want to make sure you have control, yes, and that where does the property end? I mean, that would all be a deciding factor. If that were to happen, still having access to the fields and the recreational activities would still be, that's kind of priority one. Yeah. So we did consider it. It wasn't our favorite option, but I only brought you two today. But as I said,
the more choices you give somebody, the harder it is.
That's true. That is true.
You kind of reached out there in the community to get a pulse for what the whole town was, the whole half of that part of the town.
We had a lot of representatives from North Hartland. So, and also from Hartland. So, and other members talked to their neighbors and whatnot. I certainly did some chatting around. It's more about knowing that it's there. So the more families that come in, how do they know that they have this resource? When my husband and I were coaching softball all through elementary school, we had games, practices. We had our end of year celebrations there. So T-ball was played there, but now it just sort of sits. So some intentionality from maybe the school or after school programs or something to be held out there. Maybe that will bring more parents to understand, wow, this is incredible. So I still think there's a missing piece, and I sort of ended with that, with sort of showcasing that this property.
Does the rec department have,
Well, we actually have asked John a year or two ago to explore possibly having separate programs up there, and I think the logistics of getting, yes, there are kids in North Hartland, but then to get the coaches and get the fields prepared, I don't think it went anywhere.
I recall that conversation. We do maintain all the athletic stuff up there. We mow the fields, we keep it all, we just resurfaced the courts up there somewhat recently. So we do maintain them.
I think a lot of it has to do with shade. I've enforced that a few times here. Access to water.
Yeah.
Access to water when, you got to make sure you bring all your waters. And also bathroom facilities was a problem even when we were doing our games and coaching and such. So you have to be a little bit more intentional on the use. But it is there. I think the sliding idea was great. That's a great hill for sliding. And hosting a hot chocolate event and families welcome. I mean, we were very creative.
Any thoughts, Clyde? Reactions?
Clyde, that's not considered a historic building, right? That's
Well, I
built more
consider
recently.
it was built in 1955. I don't think it was. It was built as an addition to the school because there was a lot of baby booming going on in the late 40s. And that's when the additions were put on to the 3 and 4 quarter schools.
Yeah, we actually used it to build the 8th grade dance because we were in charge of that and used that building. And it was a great way to get folks there. And we could leave everything set up, lock the door at the end, and come back the next time we met. I like when we have meetings there. It's very close.
Well, what I'm hearing is that you're just trying to develop community and have that become more of a community center. Seems to me that some of the stuff is pretty easy. There's already water there. We just need to put in spigots and things like this and plant some fast growing shade trees, which, you can do that. The part I struggle with is the building itself. We have tried for years to come up with a solution for that building.
Yeah.
And
It's definitely a target for mischievous people.
yeah, and then this year we started getting all that vandalism. We've got a camera up there now, I believe, and so
I'm not so sure about that.
I thought we had talked about it.
I think we talked.
Yes, we do. Many cameras up
It's a
there.
fake camera.
Right.
There's a camera.
Huge.
It's your turn next month. We'll hold the camera.
It's like,
Oh, I thought I did the last one.
So make a motion that Tom patrols the property on a nightly basis.
Sure.
I have a soft feeling that just because it's there, that for community gathering, especially when you've got a senior population also for the socialization.
At one meeting, you mentioned needing office space. So that, we already have a building, or, turn it into some office space for town officials. You need storage for a lot of documents that are all over the place. You could turn that basement into, an office central and storage unit down there, and have the upstairs for, activities, And at one time, we did have a select board meeting out there, and at the time, they were gonna be rotating, changing, alternating, at least, have 1 or 2 or 3 select board meetings up there, give a full sense of community. So,
And Sherry, that's why you remember this. It's a great idea.
so, and the other thing is, yeah, it's gonna cost money. You can do like a matching type thing, and start fundraising. But also, I think this town could use a anonymous donation, account. That people could make anonymous donations
and ask for it to go to certain departments or something like that versus, you know, we could start out by starting a anonymous donation, or even just regular donations for this project.
Sure, as you know, we did receive a anonymous matching donation to upgrade the walking path in Foster Meadow, which was a very significant donation.
Right. Yeah, so I think by just making it awareness that, you know, that this is something that people can do if they choose to, or just say it goes towards this project or this project.
Jeff, Randy, any additional thoughts on
George, what you were saying, Sherry, I understand what you're saying. That is an excellent point too. And it's certainly when we reviewed the building, took a look around, putting money certainly on the docket fund. You know, I think the amount of work and the cost and the rough numbers we threw out there are rough. You'd have to have some specialists in there. But the basement alone is damp, it's carpeted, and more than likely has some mold in it, that's remediation. Much of the plumbing has to be replaced. As Kim mentioned, the entire electrical has to be redone. You've got a panel needs to be upgraded to 200. I just think by the time you add it up, all of that, and I understand you have some value of the building, and it's not a historic registry situation, but it's about 100% for sure. We certainly were not focused on carrying that. And we were looking at everything. That was just another option that came in that also made sense. But I understand what you're saying.
I wouldn't recommend selling it and a portion of it, because you need it for parking.
That is what I was just going to mention. Yes. And I'm sorry, what's your name? Jim. Jim, you mentioned possibly subdividing off that section. But as Sherry said, if you're going to do anything with that property, that's prime parking. You can't really put them down on the road. We used to get that when we go to softball, and they're lined up all the way down the road. But that's prime flat location for any kind of a parking area.
Also, we didn't know where the septic tank was either. That could be in the middle of the softball field or wherever. We didn't know where that was either. So that would.
we would have to scope it and figure that out. Yeah, good point, Randy. Okay.
Can I ask a random question? If we have concerns with the underground oil tank, should we just stop? Or do we still get deliveries or no?
We keep it mildly heated, so there must be some fuel kept in there.
Should we just run that tank empty and shut the water off at a risk?
So we talked about shutting the water. We've historically kept the water on over the winter. I was just talking with Buildings and Grounds last week about turning the water off completely. You know, having quote unquote go in and drain the building and, you know, truly winterizing it. So
we're just thinking it might be good to run that tank dry so that we don't have an environmental issue.
Right. Okay. What we will do next is go back through the report and try to put price tags to it. As you very quickly pointed out, that all the options are come with a cost. And then we'll get a plan based on that, just to see what we can do from a reality perspective. But I also would like to add my own personal opinion. I've been reading James Rebanks, who was an English author, grew up on a sort of a small family farm. He went off to get educated at Cambridge or whatever, and came back and is witnessing what we're saying here, is the changing of small communities. You know, we have the pressure of the Upper Valley and a change in the rural nature of it. So I certainly am very compassionate and appreciate your conclusion that using this area as another step to building community is important to Hartland. So I share your observation and we'll look forward.
A little further background. So in 2019, I finished my Leadership Upper Valley program, and I started with wanting to do this big community event in North Hartland to bring awareness not only to that property, but also community connections. And I held an event on the park. We brainstormed and I was kicking off a huge community-wide. I don't know if you drove by in sometime in 2020 and saw these flags around the park and all these signs. Well, that was me. And we had certain volunteers that were going to set up grills, and then COVID hit. So we did not revisit that. But
Still got the flag?
I still got the flags. I've got bubbles for kids. I've got a lot of things still. So yes, I just need the tablet of energy to carry through. But
okay. Other questions for Kim or the?
Clyde, you're very quiet tonight.
Just one comment regarding the oil tank. Now, last I knew, we don't get deliveries unless they know the condition of that oil tank. So when's the last time we got oil delivered up there? Because it's been almost 40 years, it needs to be replaced.
Do you like that off the tape?
Yeah, well, I don't know the answer, but we'll find out.
Because didn't we have to replace that oil tank just recently was it the Route 12 house?
At the rec center, we did. At the rec.
Because they would, the rec center, because they wouldn't deliver it because it was not up to code.
Correct.
So.
Yeah, because as I understand, it's not the fuel delivery company that's to inspect the tank, but your oil burner, gas burner service has to verify as part of that inspection that the tank is. I don't know. I'm not a professional.
Yeah, the inspector can find those tests within the property.
So, just two quick questions. So there's not parking space other than the building lot.
And alongside the road.
And the hill that you said is a sliding hill is kind of on the edge of the property line of the building.
Yeah.
Yeah, foundation is
So
right.
if you
It's a walkout,
subdivide
so
it.
it drops right out.
Yeah. So if you sold the house and somebody bought it and restored it or whatever, it was a private, it would be encroaching on the field itself.
And then at that point.
Conceptually, the property line would be the top of the hill, theoretically.
And
because that's where the driveway goes in.
And anybody that bought the place would have to know there's gonna be 1,000 kids sliding up and down that hill all day long, looking out the window.
Put that in.
Yeah.
Put that in the clause.
They could have a hot chocolate consumption.
Yeah.
Okay, was that Trish, did you have questions? Okay, well, thank you again.
Thank you very much.
You're very welcome.
We're now to our next agenda item, which is the discussion of reserve funds and the highway reserve funds. So we have both John and BJ with us to step us through this 3-point font that I had trouble reading today.
It's a cool font. So at the previous meeting, we had talked about essentially replacing the all-wheel drive truck with an F600, and there was a request to have a little bit more information. This spreadsheet was developed last year, is my understanding, and we updated it to include current data. So what is missing, however, is the all-wheel drive truck. If you're looking at the top half of the sheet, and that's because it only goes back to 2017. The all-wheel drive truck that we're looking to replace is a 2016. So it doesn't actually show the original purchase of the truck.
But the all-wheel drive is a what? It's a
six-wheeler.
Six-wheeler.
It's a six-wheeler. Correct. So a few months ago, voted to replace truck number 5, the 10-wheeler, with a new Western Star. It was about $270,000. We're getting about $80,000 in trade-in on that, so it's going to cost us $190,000 out of the equipment fund. to purchase that truck. The request from BJ is to replace, at the same time, to replace the all-wheel drive truck with an F600. So we're gonna go down in size to an F600, to losing the capacity of the all-wheel drive. But we believe that an F600 can still do all the same work and still meet the needs of the town.
It's a small step down, right? It's not a,
It's a,
you're not going from a 10-wheeler to a 6.
well, the 6-wheeler is an all-wheel drive truck. Yeah, it's got a 11 foot panel, and it can hold,
sand.
Probably like 10 yards sand, maybe more. Whereas we're going down to an F600, I would have to, next year, I would change the sand route around. It would still plow, the F600 would still plow that route, but we would change the routes for sanding, and a 10-wheeler would have to go out there and do more sanding, because it won't hold the capacity.
Right. So it doesn't have the same capacity, but it still meets the need, by and large, meets the needs for the plow route and for the rest of the year when they're not plowing.
Right.
So
that purchase is not on here yet.
Not that purchase is not reflected on this sheet yet.
Okay, and how much is that again from last time?
So essentially we will get 80,000 for a trade-in on the all-wheel drive truck. And the new F600 is 150,000, I think.
And is that all in with the sander and all that?
That's with the plow, the sander, and everything set up.
But you're saying it's a net cost of $70,000.
It's a net cost of $70,000.
But you said the net cost of a 10-wheeler is what?
About 190.
Okay.
So 260,000 is what
all in.
All in.
And you, right now on this sheet, you've budgeted 320.
Correct. That's the transfer in this year. Right now, the equipment fund has about $400,000 in it.
Transfer in is 235. There's a cost of 320 for a 10-wheeler.
So that is the spreadsheet is a little confusing.
Needs a little work.
It needs a little work. Yes.
But I guess my point is, I guess my point is that 320 cost, it sounds like it covers 2 trucks after trade-ins.
Correct. But so what you're looking at, if you're looking at
split up
the June, are you looking at the June 30th, 2025 column there? Yeah. So that's the projected cost of when the spreadsheet was developed of what a new 10-wheeler would cost.
Right.
Turns out that we got one for $273,000 from Western Star. We subtract the trade-in value from that, we're down to 190.
Right. And then we throw a 70 or 80 on top of that for the
right.
truck.
So at the end of 2025, what will be the projected fund balance?
At the end of
June 2025.
In June of 2025,
these 2 purchases.
Correct. The fund balance would go down to, so we're talking 190 plus 70, so 250, $150,000.
Out of the 4.
Out of the 400, because we would use.
But then you're adding 235.
On July 1.
We're not, let me talk.
Right.
We're not talking about the equipment fund.
We are.
I'm talking about the fund balance after we make these purchases.
That's the
projection right now is for $235,029. If I look at this spreadsheet.
Right. If we add, right now, I think I follow your question.
Yeah, but we lost 8 cents.
Right.
Sorry.
So right now, we're spending about $240,000 out of an existing fund balance of $400,000. If we do both purchases this year,
right.
Which leaves us $140,000 in the equipment fund at the end of June 2025.
Right. But aren't we adding on top of that balance another 235 that we're budgeted to?
We're budgeted, which would get transferred in at the beginning of the next fiscal year.
Yeah.
Right.
So that fund balance
up to 400,000.
Exactly.
373.
Right. On July 1 of next year, we are back to,
All right. So
okay. So then
good.
you talk too much. So then what happens in June? So I guess this is a BJ question. What do you need the following fiscal year?
The next, in July 1st, if the budget goes through, I'll be ordering another F600 to replace the 550. So there's 150,000. And then ordering another 10-wheeler to replace the one that the warranty will be up next year. But the 10-wheeler, both of those trucks will probably not get built till the 2026.
Yeah, don't confuse that, but we're basically, we're encumbering these funds. So for those two vehicles, ballpark, how much would it cost?
Another 150 and 10-wheeler's 280 and the 600 is 150. That's without trading.
We get additional money if we trade in the 10-wheeler with warranty left on it.
Right.
So you gotta figure out, so do 280 and 150, add that up, and you subtract, let's say 80,000, they give us another 80,000 for our trade-in for the 10-wheeler. That 550, I'm not sure what they will give us for a trade-in, but I'm going low ball and saying 15 to 20 grand if they give us that for a trade-in.
The reality is the 550, we would like to trade it in before its term, in essence, because it has been, as you see on the payables, expensive. Yeah, it's been a little expensive.
That 550 is a 2018.
Yeah, it's an 18.
So it is due, next year's budget's 25, so that's 7 years old on a 1-ton pickup truck, which is, those trucks get used they're the hardest working trucks out of the fleet because we use them every day. We're doing chloride, we're sanding with them, they get used pretty hard. So they should be on a 6-year rotation anyway.
That's what I want to hear.
So I'm left with, $350,000 if we commit, we would.
So I think I don't want to get confused. The question at the table today is the F600 out of this equipment fund balance. What happens next year with ordering new trucks in the next fiscal year? I think it's a separate conversation.
Yeah, but it's a conversation. The clock is ticking.
Right, it's a valuable conversation to have, but I don't want to confuse it with the issue at the table, which is we're just looking at the request is to purchase an F600 out of this fund balance.
Okay, John, the confusing thing for me is the order lead time. And if we order it tomorrow, then aren't we committing to it, even though we don't pay for it until?
Correct, but we're only ordering the one, so I think
if I'm allowed to order this truck tomorrow, it will be built by April the latest, and it'll be on the list to be built with the bed and the plow and everything, and cross fingers, it'll be here by this time next year.
Yeah. When do you have to pay for it?
When do you have to pay for it? I assume, I'm not exactly sure, but I'm pretty sure you have to pay for your truck when you get it from, there's a Ford, so when the truck is built and we get it in April, we have to pay that portion, so it'll be 85 grand, I think. And then it's sent to Viking, and when that gets done, this time next year,
the remainder
we will have to pay.
Okay, that helps clarify.
Okay.
But I just want to make 2 observations. One observation is I think we need a correct, full accounting of everything, right? So what the lifespan is and when it should be purchased.
Yes.
Right? The other is I feel like we're kind of in a conundrum because a lot of things were bought close together 5 or 6 years ago, and now we're buying them close together again, which perpetuates this into the future. Right? We got to figure out a way to start to spread things out a little bit across years, right?
Right. I completely agree. So to your first point, I met with Two Rivers, under the Thriving Communities Grant, they are going to, as soon as we figure out a time, start working on a capital plan for us, which will do that thing.
Right.
We're looking at the equipment and the lifespan of it all. But this is slightly different, but it will inform that.
You could fix this relatively quickly.
Yeah.
Right?
Yes.
You don't need to wait for 2 Rivers.
Right. And then to the second point, I agree, and I share the same concerns that we're like lumping large purchases together. We are playing a little bit of catch up, and we have trucks that are historically a little problematic. So, I don't think anybody's making any guarantees about what might happen under the next fiscal year with the budget. Assuming the 235 gets transferred in, that's a different conversation. There's been talk about a backhoe, there's been talk about, we're talking about a backhoe, we've talked about a 10-wheeler, we've talked about fixes to the grader. We need to prioritize those things. But I do share your concern that having 4 trucks within a 2-year span sets us up for the same conversation.
They'll all be breaking down
in 7 years. Yes.
Key about this purchase is we already have this 10-wheeler that we did purchase. It's there. We're waiting for it to get on, get built. It's physically here, needs to be built so we can get it from Blanking. I want to trade, so we're already trading a 10-wheeler into that. The truck, the all-wheel drive truck is getting traded with it.
Right. With it, so you need to replace it.
So that's the plan. If we don't trade this all-wheel drive truck with it, and we're kind of in this dilemma of how can we get rid of this truck? Because I cannot.
And the all-wheel drive truck is decreasing value.
For F6.
Right. So I think you're gonna make a recommendation, right, that we approve this purchase now.
Yes.
And then we figure out the rest.
That is my recommendation, yes.
Okay.
Because we approved, if you approve the purchase of that 600 in the trade-in, we still have remaining equipment fund, we still have remaining funds in the equipment fund, which is set aside specifically to do these large purchases. We are looking at the budget. There's potentially additional money being transferred in above what has historically been transferred in, so up to 235,000 beginning next July 1. So we are then, we're rebuilding that at a higher rate as well.
Right. And if you could delay a 10-wheeler for an extra year, then you build up some more.
Exactly.
Well, then I will make a motion that we approve the replacement of the 6-wheeler. Is that right?
The all-wheel drive 6-wheeler.
The all-wheel drive 6-wheeler.
Number 14.
Should we say with the trade?
Right. Well, I think it's already
We'll be trading in for this 10-wheeler that we already got. That needs to be built. Yes.
2 trucks.
So
we're trading in 2 trucks.
Trading in 2 trucks.
But we're getting 2 trucks.
You're signing it with 1 truck.
One's already approved.
Yes.
Yeah. Right. One purchase is already approved, so we're only doing one additional purchase. So what's the correct terminology for the truck?
So truck 5 is already replaced.
No, 14. We are, the motion would be to approve the trade-in of truck number 14 to be replaced with an F600.
All right.
There we go.
In my motion.
I second that motion. Before we confuse ourselves.
So I would like,
Request to take that from the top.
just for clarity,
Head is spinning over there.
right, for clarity on the record, I'm gonna make a motion that we trade in truck 14 for a new F600. And approve the purchase of the new F600.
Is there a second? Second. All in favor, say aye. Thank you, everyone, for.
So, with my friend, Mr. Jim there, I want to agree wholeheartedly with him is for this capital budget, would also be helpful is the replacement years on these things. It may be some last, we think they can last a certain amount of time, but they really, given how you use it, that will help us a lot to know. So if you can place,
to be replaced, you know, blah, blah, blah.
Well, we've been doing, well, obviously if the vehicle has a warranty on it, or the last year, you get a better trade-in value. I know Brownsville, they have a truck order every 3 years. They only have 3 trucks. But they're getting a new truck in every 3 years. So if you're buying a truck, let's say it's $300,000 and you're replacing it 4 years, you're getting they're probably getting $150,000 trade-in out of it, where we're keeping it. And we're only getting, you know, we're keeping it for.
So if they have 3 trucks, so they have 3 trucks?
Yeah, they have 3 10-wheelers, and they have 4 trucks. They have 3 10-wheelers.
They must be keeping them for 9 years if they're replacing them every 3. If they do 1 truck every 3 years.
They got a new truck coming they order it every 3 years.
So that means they're retiring a 9-year-old.
Right. The point is, we got behind as it, like,
yeah,
in some
years ago.
Some years ago, we got behind. We're playing catch up, right? Do I want to be buying 2 trucks a year? No.
Right. But I think it's worth asking the question though, and you guys can figure out the math.
Yeah.
Is it really worth it to trade it in early to get the higher trade-in value because it's under warranty? Or is it more economical just to run it into the ground and get a lower trade-in value?
So some of the maintenance numbers are really occurring.
The 550s have not been more economical.
Yeah.
Rare trucks, which should be replaced.
And also this year we were down, how many trucks? We were down more than 2 trucks at one point.
Yes, we were this.
Yeah, so that doesn't make any sense.
It's a conversation to be had, but like the 550 like PJ was saying, those are trucks that we probably will likely, run until they, start costing us.
What do you get? 5 total? What do you guys use for the plowing?
Yeah, 5 trucks. Well, 4. We have the building and grounds and the roundabout trucks. Those shouldn't have to be replaced for a long time.
Right. But if you trucks, yeah, it's just if you get on a cycle of 1 a year,
yeah,
with a 10-wheeler spaced out,
No, we're good.
Thanks, PJ.
PJ, thank you.
Thank you.
My brain hurts.
Yeah, thanks for coming.
My brain hurts looking at the small font, but yes.
We could do 11 by 17 paper.
We'll cover that at another time. Yes.
Okay, moving on to the town manager update.
Sure. So you all saw the construction work happening outside. They anticipate having that all wrapped up by Thanksgiving. The sidewalk was poured today. They were working on the drainage along the exterior of the building. They're kind of backfilling it with gravel today.
You mean sidewalk out here?
Sidewalk out on the side of the building here. So they're moving right along. They still need to replace the sidewalk on the far end. That was a part of the 3 Corners project that didn't have the detectable warning plates installed. They're going to tear up those 3 sections of sidewalk, replace them as well. They're not just going to kind of try to fit the warning plates in. They're just going to replace them.
They find anything interesting?
They have not. Everybody keeps asking what's gone wrong. And I'm like, nothing. Let's stop talking about it.
The first thing I asked them.
Right. Everything's gone really well.
I'm just curious as to why it's drained so poorly. What were they reviews?
Well, I think the pitch of it was not really set properly. So they've done a little bit of work to regrade it to get it to drain better.
They're very neat.
They're
very good.
Yes. Yeah.
And the splash areas around the building are being changed as well.
Yes, they took up that concrete pad that was around the exterior of Damon Hall, which had over the years tilted towards, so water was coming off the roof, hitting the concrete pad, running towards the building. They very loudly tore that up last week.
Was it easy work in here?
It was not. It was a great day to deliver agendas throughout town. It's not. But so it's all going really well. They backfilled it all today with, they put in some drain tile, gravel, and there's some dirt out there they're going to fix. They're work on fixing their mess.
The weather's been really cooperative without any deep freeze nights.
Right, exactly. They looked out. So at the previous meeting, there was a discussion about what the Windsor County Courthouse payment was going to. So just to clarify, it's for the upkeep of the 2 county buildings, wages for the assistant judges, building maintenance, the county clerk, deputy clerk wages. So just so we all know what that money is, what that payment is going towards, that is what it is.
We were notified last week that because of the severity of the storm in July of 2023, the town share for the damages is down to 2.2%. So I have it written down in my office and I forgot to grab it. We have about $130,000 in damage. So our portion of that, we're going to be out $2,500 or so, which is,
when do we get the money?
well, so all the projects are closed. Everything has been all set. We did our final closeout meeting with FEMA. The ball is in their court.
But that didn't happen a while ago, didn't it?
No, the meeting happened maybe 3 weeks ago. So less than a month ago, I had the final closeout meeting to say, we agree with all your payments. We agree with how everything is going to go. They submitted on their end. It gets, at some point, we will receive payment.
John, can you just clarify, are we talking FEMA or the state, or is it a combination of both?
FEMA, I think this check might come from Vermont Emergency Management. Okay. FEMA is funneling money to them, who is paying it back to us. Okay. But the important thing to note is what had been 12.5% of the total damage that we were going to be on the hook for is reduced to 2.2%. Right. So
what do we use the money for when we get it?
Trucks.
That's 1,000.
Maybe we make a motion. Maybe we make a motion if the check comes in that we apply that money to the equipment.
Absolutely. Question, where was the damage?
So this was Best Road, Reeves Road, Town Farm.
And we repaired it.
Everything got repaired at the time. Shortly after the storm.
Okay.
So this is money that we spent, having Persals or other contractors do work, town crew, we paid the money.
And sooner or later, FEMA.
At some point, right, we're going to get money in.
I wouldn't hold your breath.
Well, at some point, they're going to pay us.
That's true. They will. They don't have any money to pay us with.
So the Old Home Days fireworks, we are on track for actually July 4th next year. So that's Friday. I believe it's a Friday. So just put it on your calendar, get your costumes out, be ready. There was a shared services discussion, which has been happening kind of in the background on multiple things. So both the Two Rivers Regional Planning Commission had reached out asking if we wanted to buy into a shared energy coordinator position. So we could buy X number of hours of Harry Falconer's time. Harry is their energy planner. He helped do like the MERP grant application for the library. He's been very helpful, very responsive. So it's some towns are buying 80 hours a year, some towns are buying 500 hours a year. So the question came to us of whether we want to buy into that position or not. That's $75 an hour. So it's grant writing, grant administration, energy.
But specifically related to energy.
Specifically related to energy. Energy generation projects, public outreach on energy. Really, the end of the sales pitch says really anything energy related.
So folks may or may not know that our application for a MERP grant that we did 9, 10, 12 months ago, just recently we learned we did not receive it. So that's an example of possibly we could go after, we know we need an HVAC system in the library. But there are some energy things that we could potentially look for grant monies for.
Right, and not just limited library. There's energy needs at the rec center, energy needs here at Damon Hall, right? Retrofits that we could do. But it's whether or not we want to buy into this position at $75 an hour.
So I think we should keep a running list of possible future expenditures in this budget year. And then pick from that. I'm not real optimistic with and I'm going to be political for a second, with the future administration in Washington, how much energy efficiency type monies are going to be available for us. And so I don't know what that person would do.
Right, I agree. And obviously this isn't an agenda item, right. But I think it is.
Well, we're also, just to add, we don't know what our colleagues over, at the school are coming up with the impact of their budget, and we haven't yet addressed our budget in full.
Right.
So yes,
I think it might be a good idea, but let's just see what we can afford and can.
Is there a deadline?
There's not a deadline. I mean, he's employed right now, and these other towns have committed to filling, a lot of his time. He anticipates having about 200 to 300 hours of space in the coming year. So even if that is 50 to 100 hours of, if that's what the board likes, that's still grant applications in, chasing down some of these other projects. So it's an option. We can look at it in the budget though. And then related to shared services, the town of Windsor reached out to see if we were interested in utilizing, they have a land use planner and zoning administrator on their staff that they share with other towns up and down the valley, and whether or not we would be interested in utilizing their services to do, not that we have zoning, but some of the construction permit administration, junk ordinance administration, things along those lines.
So used as an ordinance administrator.
Yes.
Okay.
See, I like that better because that person could also look into helping us develop a road policy, all types of general grant writing.
Yeah, but that's already budgeted. We do have money budgeted for that.
We took the ordinance administrator position out of the budget.
Out of the proposed.
Out of the proposed budget. We have it for this
year.
Yes. Yeah.
So
I can continue. I can meet with Windsor, have a preliminary conversation with them to see how it looks, basically.
So also full disclosure, our organization worked with Windsor to develop this shared service event. So
we've been talking about this for a while.
We're not benefiting from it. Our organization isn't benefiting, but we helped to set this up. So just full disclosure.
But I think if it's in the operational budget, it's positioned, you have to have a FTE that we've assigned. I think it's really your decision, and you inform us if we have objections.
Right. All I'm doing is putting it on your radar that these conversations are happening.
My concern is that we have, we're getting an administrator who is talking about the law, our ordinances, or are we actually getting an on-the-ground ordinance administrator that's going to go up on some of the neighborhoods in town and basically say, you've got to clean this up? And
no, this person currently lives in Bennington. I think it would be done remotely with information being fed to them by the town.
Yeah, I'm not.
But I think it has the potential to work fine. That doesn't give me much pause.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So I'll continue to talk with the town about that.
Okay.
And go forward.
Maybe just give us an idea of like a scope of work.
Yeah. Yep. So last week, the town of Lebanon reached out regarding the landfill where some Hartland residents bring trash and recycling. They are currently working to extend the life of the landfill, which requires some new permitting, some moving things around, likely some rate increases, as they're going to have to kind of move trash out of one, hole to a different hole, line, clean, move the trash back, and move forward. Plus they have some contamination from PFAS or other chemicals that they're having to deal with. So there's also the potential that the state of New Hampshire is going to pass legislation that would prohibit state of Vermont residents from bringing trash to New Hampshire, which would have a negative impact on the town of Hartland.
How does the Hartford transfer station work?
It goes to Lebanon.
All goes to Lebanon.
Right. So right now, I don't have a firm number of how many Hartland residents bring their trash directly to Lebanon, but this is just this was a preliminary conversation that was happening, but it has the potential to have an impact on folks. Here.
Just to remind the board that the Greater Upper Valley Solid Waste District, which owns property in North Heartland right next to Twin State, has an active Act 250 for a landfill. They don't have a solid waste permit, but they do have an Act 250. It's one of the best sites in the state.
Isn't it close to the river? Huh?
It's about a quarter mile away from the river, but you see sandy, silty soils.
Which the Lebanon one probably is also the same distance away from the river.
Opposite.
Yeah, right, just on the opposite side. So nothing to be done, but, putting it in a radar for information. So more to come.
Must be really nice to the fast trash people.
Yes. And that is it.
Okay. Future agenda items of the capital program, Three Corners intersection, and budget.
Budget. The library and the rec are coming at the next meeting to talk about their budgets. I also, for future agenda items, we'll put the North Hartland School back on there to make sure we move on that.
Do we need a placeholder for cemeteries?
We don't need a placeholder for cemeteries right now. I think it's
What
still.
What about the lights?
The lights are on there.
Oh, okay.
John, before we do correspondence, earlier you had mentioned you may have a Mayor Campbell request.
Correct. That did not. I don't have information to bring that to you.
Is there any correspondence that we need to respond to?
Not that we need to respond to, but we did get notified that there's an application going to be submitted for a telecommunications tower in town. So we just received this in the mail. I can share it along with folks. It's obviously quite the packet. All of their diagrams are quite small. Hopefully I can track down a digital copy.
Is that the cell tower up on Town Farm?
Yeah, this is the Shallow, I believe was the name.
Yeah, Sam Shallow.
Yeah, Sam Shallow.
Yeah.
How tall is that proposed tower, do you know?
It's 160.
Is it FAA? Is that what it's for?
It doesn't, I did not see that when I looked through this.
What road is that?
Town Farm.
So it was, I thought it was a 173-foot cell phone tower.
It's a 160-foot above ground level telecommunications self-supporting lattice tower within the compound, which is 80 by 80.
Can I get is there a digital copy of it?
I had not gotten a digital copy of it, but I will share it once I do.
So I read like 30-page document on this. Did you guys not?
So that was a little confusing. They had somehow the planning commission had gotten a hold of a document and we're discussing it. That was all very preliminary though. This is their actual application that they're going to submit for a certificate of public good. So things may have changed from their original kind of scoping.
What would be the role of either ourselves as a select board or the planning commission? Is there a hearing that we would need to potentially ask to take part of?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. So I think it's important to take a look at it to see if we want to participate in the hearings as they go forward.
You ask for what they call intervenor status. It's very formal. But I think you could ask for a public meeting in the coast community. Right?
Yeah.
I think you can ask for that.
We can find out, yeah. So that's
you could, it doesn't necessarily have to be on one of our board nights, but you could ask them to come to town.
Okay. And it is interesting that the planning commission maybe jumped the gun a little bit with the work that they were doing.
Well, it was an interesting, I think, things that are a little confusing, but this is their actual application that we need to respond to.
Another we don't have is the town plan. I have not received a copy. I don't know what the status is. When do they want to provide that to us?
Sure.
Other than the one we got from David, electronically, right?
Yeah, there was one that was sent.
Yeah, but I don't know what.
I'm not sure that was a whole document or
Yeah.
My understanding was that was a work
It was a
in
while
progress.
ago, right. They haven't sent a finished one.
They don't have a finished.
There was a draft, so I think we asked for a month, 2 months ago.
But it might be helpful to us if, high level, they go over the major differences in it. New compared to old. I mean,
That's an excellent idea. And I've asked John to keep an eye on what's being requested of Two Rivers, or how we would like Two Rivers to integrate their time with the planning commission to sort of get the
because
document.
in fairness, we should let them know that given that it's budget season, we don't have a whole lot of time.
Correct. They are aware of their time
Well,
constraints.
there's another time constraint in that our current town plan, I believe, expires in May.
In May.
So we would have none unless we readopted the 2017 plan temporarily.
Yes.
That word.
And there was some correspondence that I'll just sort of at a very high level came today from the planning commission that John is going to react to, and based on that reaction, we'll get some information to ourselves.
Has a court hearing been set yet for the Supreme Court?
No court hearing has been set. I have a date that they need to submit everything. Their briefs need to be submitted. I think it's December 6th or December 9th. The Hartland Planning Commission brief is due to the court by December 6th. Their attorney estimates that a rough time frame for a decision is spring or summer of 2025. So.
Okay.
Mostly heavy lifting stuff.
So we certainly have our homework to do, getting some engineering feedback, reviewing the engineering feedback that the Bird Hill folks will be doing, and making some decisions. But I think the key thing for us to focus on is the budget. I mean, we've come into December, next is our next meeting, and help me when we finalized it, usually by the end of December.
Roughly.
It seems like it's trickled over into January the past couple of years, but
there's been a couple of special meetings on Christmas Eve, and
so again, the library and the rec are coming at the next meeting. From there, we've already taken a kind of a 20,000 foot view. We talked to the highway. This is the library and the rec. There's not significant changes coming in with regards to the budget, so we're trying to keep it as straightforward as possible for you.
Okay.
But we still need to have a discussion at some point about Queechee Road.
We do need to have a discussion at some point about the Queechee Road.
So it'd be great if you
right. So
want to have recommendations or something for us.
Right.
There were a couple of things like that. Like if that had to go to town meeting for a bond, that's a big deal.
Yes.
Right. And there may be some other things we've talked about that we need to talk about again that might need to go to town meeting. So it's not just approving the budget, it's knowing all the right articles that we're going to suggest.
And Jim, if I could recast what you're saying, I mean, our biggest choice is a bond for the 6 million to do the whole thing, or do we begin to do a section by section?
Right.
And what does that mean?
That's what I was getting at.
So I think that's a decision before you even get there. But personally, I don't think you do a $6 million bond. I think you have some serious sections of road that need to be dealt with sooner rather than later, and it's probably more like a 3. And then the rest, you kind of just cycle through every year.
I think your observation is correct. The roads are in pretty bad shape. But second, if we're not going after how much would some of those sections cost, because some of the sections that are in worse shape are the ones that are dropping off.
Right. Yeah. So if you think back about the report, the option 1 and option 2 sections are in pretty good shape. Right. It's the 3 and 4 that really need to be done. Price tag was somewhere north of $3 million.
So when we put that on the agenda, we'll, and I actually today was getting the dust off the pathways, but we'll have to review the pathways report, Everett Hammond's report, and then basically sit back and say, well, based on these factual documents, what do we do?
So the caution of the wind, there's a lot of work to get done in the next 2 meetings.
Well, we're not gonna get them.
Well, you've got some deadlines that you've got to back into.
No,
to have things
I
done for
agree,
the
and
town plan.
January.
I took a moment to chat about it, to make sure that we're all realize that we do have some in-between meeting homework once we sort of begin to go through that budget, that you're gonna have to, be doing that work so that we come to the meetings prepared to ask good detailed questions and understand.
Can we just, think about just having a budget only meeting?
We can have a budget only meeting. We could do a budget only meeting at the next meeting. We could have the library and the rec come, present their budgets, and then just keep on the budget.
Yeah.
I would like to keep the North Hartland School on the next meeting agenda, just to keep it as so we actually make a determination and a decision on it.
I think we ought to pencil in December 30th
We
for
may not
potential
have,
extra meeting.
we may not have all the
We
information.
may not have the information, but I don't want to lose sight of the things that we can make decisions on.
Okay.
So if people are here, I would suggest we at least pencil in December 30th, the Monday, for our extra meeting if we need it.
December what?
30th.
That would be the regular schedule then.
No, 2nd and the 16th, the regular schedule, the 30th would be an extra.
That'd be the third meeting of the month.
Right, but it's.
Oh my God. I had no place to go.
Okay. Okay, before we float into more zingers here, anything else?
That is it.
I'll make a motion to adjourn.
So moved. Okay, thank you.